Welcome into the official. We are continuing our three-star series. And last week we looked through the three-star QB. So if you haven't checked that out, please go to the YouTube channel and give it a look. We identified about 6 three-star quarterbacks, mostly at all Power 5 schools that we think can be early contributors and may even have NFL upside. This week, we're going to continue this series and look at three-star running backs, mostly, again, 2 Power 5 schools. They will have opportunity to play early. They have the skills and the metrics that we really like. So these are not super duper sleepers. These are guys we really like, even though they are rated 3 stars. We see it happen every year. Damien Martinez, for instance, last year, 3-star running back, buried in the rankings with a 1,000-yard freshman season and a very promising outlook from here on out. So with that being said, let's dive in. 3-star running backs. This is the official. All right, good to have the whole team back. We got David as usual, Matt back in action. How you feeling, bud?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, all right. So good to have the whole squad here. Last week, like I mentioned in the intro, we did quarterbacks. Sorry you missed that, Matt, but you definitely were helping behind the scenes, I know, and obviously, did a lot in identifying the players. But today we get to talk about running backs. I think this is one of the, this is the crown jewel of your fantasy team, having a stud workhorse running back, and especially finding a cheap one in your freshman drafts. I have an issue with this year's class a little bit. Last year, we all identified Andrew Paul going to Georgia. He was a late riser. Everybody liked him. I think he still wound up a 3-star, even with the final rankings. But most people were comfortable saying he should be a 4 and, drafting him even in freshman drafts. I drafted a ton of Damien Martinez last year. Felt very confident that he was going to be good, and he surpassed my expectations. I don't feel like we've got that guy this year. What do you think, Matt and or David? We'll talk about a bunch of guys, but I just don't – there's no one I'm, definitely going to be drafting the way I thought about Martinez.
No, yeah, for me, I just don't really have that guy where I could see, this high-end talent that's just going, unrecognized. I think there's a lot of really good guys that are 3 stars here, but none of them that I'd be like, oh, wow, this guy needs to be in my top 10 running backs or top 15. Well, one is my 15th overall running back, but there's no, high-end guys. Like Andrew Paul was a top 10 back for me.
Mm-hmm.
Damien Martinez was, I think, either just outside or a top 10 running back for me. So there's just not that high-end talent that's being slept on.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just going to say we were pretty spoiled last year because on 3, Quinshon Judkins was a guy that finished as a 3-star. Yep. Ashton Gianti. I mean, pretty much all these guys I was a little more excited about.
Samuel Brown.
Yeah, Samuel Brown. Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot about, Judkins, because as a company, C2C, we were very high on Judkins. He became a legitimate 3rd-round, freshman draft pick, though. So I didn't get that much of him as it all shaked out. But he was obviously sensational, and he was a 3-star. Janty, another great one, and I liked him from the get-go. None of these, maybe, by the time we get to freshman draft season the next 2 months, maybe some of these guys will grow on us. Sometimes they show up on campus and they're a little bit heavier, and we like that. And then obviously spring rolls around, you start hearing some buzz. So things could change. I mean, that was one thing with Damien Martinez. I liked him, but then from the moment he was on Oregon State's campus, they were saying, oh, he's getting first-team reps. And so that will change our opinion as well, I think. But we have, about 10 or so names, and I know the people want the names. So let's start with a guy going to a school, a program that we always keep tabs on in terms of who they're offering and who they're going to get. We loved Kamorian Pimpton, the tight end, who then got, ended up going to LSU, but he was identified by Vandy. And now I've got Diego Benson here, headed to Vanderbilt, 6 foot, 200-pound, good initial size, nice max MPH 20.8. Matt, what do you like about Diego Benson out of the state of Texas, which is another thing we always like? and headed to Vandy. Did they find another gem here?
Yeah, I guess the big selling point with him is his receiving ability. I think he overall just has a super well-rounded game. He can go on to be a three-down back for Vanderbilt. He's got the size, he's got the athletic ability, and he can definitely catch, as you'll see in the clips here. He last season 110 carries, 1,075 yards, 9.8 average, so looking very good there. 12 receptions, 207 yards, and I think pretty decent level of Texas competition. I think we're going to see a couple guys on this list that aren't exactly playing against the best of the best, but I believe he was at least average. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, you always love to see a highlight where he's the only player in the screen. So that always kind of gives you the sense of the breakaway ability. And the hitting almost 20.8 or 20.8, almost 21. We like that. I mean, that's definitely good enough to break away. So, yeah, that's an interesting name. Love it in the SEC. If he becomes a three-down back, like you said, we're talking about big-time upside. So, all right, I'm going to take a guy that I've been talking about, so I'll be brief. A guy I've been talking about most of the season here, Kewan Brown, out of South Atlanta High School, a nice, thick 5'9", 205, headed to Louisville with a max MPH of 20.5. And he just put together a ridiculous season for South Atlanta. But I think he had back-to-back like 1,600-yard seasons with, I want to say 30-plus touchdowns in 2 years, his last 2 years at South Atlanta. So tremendous workhorse, good enough of a receiver. But I really you'll see here, even in these clips, like he's shifty without being spectacular with his movements, but he knows how to he knows how to create angles. He knows how to make it hard to get a hit on him. And, he just uses his body and kind of wiggles around and is very effective and was effective in good high school football in the state of Georgia. So we will see what happens. But you like that Louisville offense with Jeff Brom. There's a lot to like here for a three-star guy that's, going to be at the end of your freshman drafts and maybe, undrafted, but keep an eye on him because the depth chart there is also very thin. Let's see. Let's go to Mike Mitchell. I'm going to hop around, going to kind of go in alphabetical order, but I want to talk about Mike Mitchell. David, I believe you guys both like them, but I'm going to give him to you. Michael Mitchell headed to Utah, again, out of the state of Georgia. We like that. 6'1", 195. Max MPH 21.4. So he's got the wheels. What do you like about him, David?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of him early on in the process, but he kind of grew on me over time. I think one thing was his highlight quality. The quality of his video was really bad on Huddle, but as a senior, they used him quite a bit as a receiver, which I hadn't seen that much on his junior tape, so it's just another box to check. He's actually listed at 5'11", 206 on Utah's website, so a dense guy, which isn't particularly surprising when you watch him play because I don't know if he'll catch any plays on here, but he is a tackle breaker. He's a grinder he'll grind between the tackles. He can bust a run. He's not super dynamic on the second level, but he does have home run potential, with the 21.4 miles per hour. But size, he can run between the tackles and he can catch passes, and Utah is a good landing spot. So it's pretty simple.
Sometimes we don't have to make this that hard. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, so I've got him a little taller and a little lighter, but if he's 5'11", 206 as a freshman, you like that. 21.4 miles an hour if he gets in the open field. That's kind of the recipe. A guy like Damien Martinez last year was 220, so a little heavier, but that's what we like. We like fast and heavy. In some of these three-star guys, we don't have to make it so hard. Let's go Jordan Louis. This is a guy I've liked, and I feel like, Matt, you've warmed up to him. I don't know if you've liked him the whole time, but I feel like more people have started to mention his name, but a guy I liked initially, and he was going to West Virginia, but now we like going to UNC in a crowded depth chart, but a good program that produces running backs. And why do you like Louis here? 5'11", 205. And I've got his average long run, 51.1 yards. Do you want to mention a little bit of what you did looking at average long run per game for some of these guys?
Yeah, so just with that quickly, Max Preps has players, not every player, but some guys has their game log. So with that, I was looking at taking the average longest run of of each game of that season, just to see how much of their big playability is really and how consistently they're doing it. And with Louis, he may not be a juiced up athlete, the kind of guy that I typically go after, but he's a really well built, good runner, awesome receiver. He put up extremely good production this year. 1,500 yards, 10 per carry, 600 receiving yards. So it's hard not to like his odds of kind of repeating that production at North Carolina if he gets the opportunity. Especially with Hampton and Petaway not really turning out how we wanted to year one. I think it's really just him and Elijah Green for reps next year, unless Hampton or Petaway really step it up. But I think his skill set is really a good blend of both Hampton and Petaway. So I think it would make more sense just to get him on the field.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, that does strike me as we definitely had Hampton and Petaway as two sides of the same coin. But I agree, Louis might be that coin that's got both sides in one package here. And yeah, I didn't even put his max MPH because it's not that impressive. I don't even think he hits 20. It's
I
like
think I think it's low 20s.
high 19 or low 20s. But that's not the end all be all. And if you can be a receiver and you're heavy enough, like 205 coming in, we do like that. We do like that quite a bit. Let's see. How about David? Can you walk us through Jamarian Wilcox? I know he's a guy headed to Kentucky. 5'7", 195. So an interesting size here. That's pretty heavy for a guy who's only listed at 5'7". Max MPH 20.5. So that's not going to blow you away. But he is an interesting runner. I think he's a good runner. And what do you like about Wilcox headed to Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm hoping the 5'7" isn't accurate, but because everywhere else he's listed at 5'9" or 5'10", and I saw some pictures of him next to other guys that are listed at 5'10", and he's pretty much there. I think he's probably 5'9", maybe 5'8.5" at the worst, but he is a pit bull basically. That's probably like his only like uh, um, standout catch on tape right there, but he is capable of doing it. But he has like a wrestling background. He's super dense. He's just really hard to tackle. He has really good lifting numbers as well. I think deadlift and his squat were really impressive. So he's just kind of like this squatty guy that is really hard to take down. And I think the landing spot's good. I know they have Remon Davis, but I think he only has probably one more year. After that, there's not a.
You're muted, Alfred.
I remember when he was at Temple, Remon Davis, like seems like 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I think he's got one more year, and then after that, like their depth chart is relatively cleared out, I feel like. So maybe he gets on the field relatively early. And it's a pro style offense with Liam Cohen coming back, so decent offense too.
Yeah, we do like that. Liam Cohen did a nice job. All right, so moving on, another guy that I've kind of liked, Caleb Hicks. He's headed to Oklahoma, which obviously that's a great school, great program that churns out, talented skill position guys all the time. Listed at 5'11", 195 with a nice max speed of 21.3. And in addition to having that long speed of 21.3, he also does show a lot of nice movement in the open field and things like that. So here's Hicks. And there he's like splitting two secondaries and he's gone. So showing off some of that long speed. He also has a decent amount of receiving on tape. So he's just a guy that kind of does it all. And as a 3-star guy, you like that. There's a little movement there in the backfield and breaking tackle. And now just kind of breaking angles here as he gets into the secondary. Of course, the depth chart is pretty stacked. They had two good players, but there's some nice, juke shifting in the open field and finding a spot. So I just think he's a good running back, kind of maybe you could say a faster version of Louis in terms of how he runs. Not super shifty, not super duper flashy, but just like makes strong movements and definitive movements and evades tackles. But like I said, that depth chart is a little stacked with two good freshmen this past year. So, we'll see how he ends up doing. But at this point, when you're drafting these guys or having them on some kind of watch list for yourself, you just need to watch for an opportunity. I don't think any of these guys are going to be like spend a high draft pick or meaningful capital to get them on your team, but names to be a watching for. Matt, I gotta give you DJ Oliver here. You were the first one I ever heard talk about him. Out of Point St. Joe in the west side of Florida, I think below kind of Tampa area. Listed 5'11", 240 on the West Virginia website. That's heavier and shorter than he was listed on the recruiting sites, but with a max MPH of over 20, which alone is pretty impressive. So you've been on Oliver for a long, long time. I mean, we were talking about him, it feels like almost a year ago, 6, 7, 8 months ago when he was committed to South Florida. You still like him headed to West Virginia now?
Yeah, I like the player. I don't love the spot at the moment, just because CJ Donaldson is just such a similar player to him and what he brings. So unless something happens there, he's not going to be too high for me. But love the player. I mean, massive guy, but he moves really well for his size. Fantastic receiver as well. I mean, you don't see as much in this year's highlights, but last year he had some really impressive catches, and here he is returning a punt.
Returning a punt at 240 pounds.
You don't see too many 240 returners, except for maybe his uncle, LeGarrette Blount, who was also a fantastic returner at massive size.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So he does have NFL bloodline, so there is that potential for upside there. It's just at the moment, the depth chart situation. I mean, it's hard not to see Donaldson when you look at him here. I mean, it's very similar style of play, so it's just hard for me to imagine he's going to see a lot of time with him there.
I think that's fair, but maybe works into a committee year one, and we see what happens. Love to see him against big time competition. Well, at least ACC Big 12 competition, I guess. Well, I took a trip back in time. Were they ever the ACC? I know they're big. They're Big East. I don't know. That was just a total slip up there. All right. David, I want you to talk about this guy who's, I think, a bit of an enigma as to what are we going to expect out of him. But he keeps coming up in all these metrics we run, and that's Dawson Pendergrass. 6'2", 220 pound, kind of a beast, just a tall, big guy who ran for 3,000 yards this year in the state of Texas at running back, headed to Baylor. Is there a reason we should be excited about Dawson Pendergrass, or at the very least, look out for his name in spring and see where he lands on the depth chart once it all shakes out?
I think we should be interested. I mean, with his production profile, it's off the charts. I think he ran for over 8,000 for his career or something like that. They just fed this guy. He can clearly handle a huge workload. He's already listed at 220 pounds. He's also a basket player. He's got dunk highlights. He's got a pretty good vertical, pretty explosive. I don't think there's a ton of evidence of him.
Extra points here. Look at that.
Yeah, so I think he's just kind of one of these guys that just kind of does everything.
That is an insane play. I've actually never seen that before.
He is listed at running back, but the coach at Baylor has a tendency to flip-flop guys around from linebacker to running back. I guess that's
Aranda.
There is some risk baked in here. Yeah, Aranda. And he has linebacker experience. He's a pretty good linebacker too in high school. So there is risk there, but I mean, the tape is solid to me. It has to be, I feel like, to be putting up those numbers in Texas. So he could play either side of the ball. I think I like him more at running back though.
Yeah. Reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurd, who is that size, about 6'2", 6'3", 220, 230, who was at Tennessee, but then ended up transferring to Baylor, and had a great final season. But I think he switched to receiver, so I don't know. He had a weird career. Matt, tell us about Jamal Roberts. This guy, 5'11", 200, going to Missouri, a nice max speed here, over 21 miles an hour. I think I have watched him quite a few times in this process, and I liked what I saw as well. I think he's a nice little back for the Missouri Tigers. What's your take?
Yeah, I was really much higher on him going into his senior year. He didn't really take a step forward like I was hoping to, but I still think he's a good player, and I think he's better than a lot of the guys they have there in that Missouri running back room. Especially with kind of how we saw that offense play out this last year. They're not a huge passing offense. He's going to be able to get carries if he's the star running back there. I mean, they proved that in the past as well. So it's really more of a CFF bet here to a certain extent. He does have the athletic ability to make it to the league, but I'm not as sold on his talent. It's just a good situation for a pretty good player.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, I remember the thing about him is he does seem pretty smooth in terms of just his running style. Um, just kind of makes smooth cuts, transitions to the open field and things like that, but not someone who necessarily wows you. But like you said, I agree, that's a good spot for a running back. They're going to run the ball. That is for sure at Missouri. And then finally, I want to let one of you guys, because I know you've kind of been on him. David Darrell Robinson. We did talk about him last or the G5 show. We did talk about Darrell Robinson quite a bit. He's got an interesting story, but he was like an All-American Bowl player who wound up going to Charlotte, which is very interesting. But anything you want to add on Robinson? I know Matt already laid the case at the previous episode that he could be like a year one kind of a potential CFF like legitimate starter, if they're going to pound the rock in Charlotte.
Yeah, Matt kind of went through it. I believe he was committed to Boston College. Correct me if I'm wrong, or he was at least anticipated to go there. But he had like tons of P5 offers. So once again, don't have to overcomplicate things. If he's a P5 talent playing on a G5 team against G5 competition, I don't know if anyone really stands out to me on their depth chart at the moment. So, and
No.
Matt had mentioned that the coach was his high school coach as well. So there's already rapport there. So it seems likely that he will contribute right away.
Yeah, you gotta like it. And we talked last time on the G5 show. Like, I think he's a guy you actually draft potentially, where a lot of these guys are maybe just watch list. Yeah, he's a guy you draft at the end of your draft and hope that he's the day one starter, which doesn't seem impossible. All right, so those are all the main graphics. We do have some other names because we just love throwing out guys. There's so many in the universe here, the recruiting universe. But Matt, I believe Carson Hansen's a guy you've talked about before. You want to give us a quick rundown here? I'll throw his 30-second clip up there.
Yeah, he's going to Iowa State. I believe 6'1", 190 pounds. He's a really high-end athlete. He's put up absolutely dominant rushing numbers over the past 2 years. I think he's a 2,000-yard rusher back-to-back years. Gatorade Player of the Year in his state. So there's a lot to like there. I think he brings us something a bit different to what the Iowa State running back room has at the moment with his athletic ability and his receiving ability as well, as you can see there at the one-handed grab.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the well here and talk about a guy I feel like I got to give to you because you identified him when he had 0 stars to his name, ended up signing with Clemson. That's Jamarius Haynes. And I know you mentioned off air, maybe, he's gone down. This is always very fluid, but can he compete, get in the rotation at Clemson, do you think?
Yeah, probably not year one, but I do still like him a bit. I mean, he's an interesting prospect. He moves very well, in my opinion. He's a good runner, physical guy, especially at his not huge size. So I think there's a lot of upside with him. Clemson also is bringing in Jarvis Green, who went to Fork Dutch in South Carolina, the same school as Antonio Williams, and he put up a dominant season this year. So that has me slightly worried about maybe they like him more, or who's going to be the lead back there when the time comes. But I still prefer Haynes, so I'm going to lean on that bet still.
All right, yeah. I mean, you got to plant your flag eventually. Moving down the line here, another guy, David. You can speak to him if you want. I actually don't know much about this guy. You guys are always a step ahead of me. Leo Polasi, listed as an athlete, so he's very interesting. 6'1", 205, at least on 24/7. Committed to Washington State. What's up with this guy? I don't know. I mean, I guess he's gonna play running back, and we like him, but I honestly, this is news to me. This Polasi.
So Pelassi, this guy, he can catch the ball. He's kind of a two-way guy, right? Like he plays linebacker. He's kind of like a worse version of Pendergrass a little bit, but he has the size. He's a tackle breaker, and I think that the depth chart's pretty open over there as well. I don't know if you guys know what that looks like.
They may have got a transfer, and I know they had some guy, Dostoevsky or something last year, who got
They
some
had
run.
Watson last year.
Oh, Nakia Watson, and he's
Yeah.
gone.
Mhm.
Yeah, so could be.
I
could be a
think
little
he's
bit
just a
open.
good fit in that offense. Good mover at his size. Really good receiver.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we love good receivers over 200 pounds. That's always fun. And then I think finally, I guess we got two more here. No, just one more actually, I think, and that is going to be Caleb Hampton. And Matt, take it away with Caleb Hampton here.
Yeah, so he was a really late find. He didn't get a P5 offer until late December. He's committed to Stanford. He's actually a two-sport athlete. He got offered to play baseball and football there. So I think he was considered to be more of a baseball prospect for a while. His 24/7 profile was just baseball. But it sounded like he really wanted to play football in college, and he ended up getting the Stanford offer late and took it. And I really like his tape. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, really well built, moves really well.
Ooh.
So if he's a guy that decides he wants to play football and play running back, I'd be very interested.
Yeah, I mean that tape was pretty interesting, and this is another guy where
And highly productive too. Sorry, 1,800-yard rusher this year, almost 20 touchdowns in Tennessee.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a private school in Chattanooga, so questionable competition, but
They beat Marcel Reed's team in the state championship.
okay, all right, beat Marcel Reed's team. That's something. State champions. Yeah, I mean that tape's pretty interesting. I like how he moves behind the line. I like some of his stutter steps. He definitely has some slick ability to evade tacklers there. That's a pretty interesting tape. I think I might circle that name and do some more reconnaissance on my own for Caleb Hampton. I think that's a good name. Nice one to end on. I don't think there's
Can I just
anybody
do
else
one
here.
one name drop? We did him in the G5 show, but Keith
Okay,
Willis
go.
Jr.
Yes.
I just wanted to just throw his name out there. If you guys want to know about him, you can watch the G5 part 1 or part 2. I forget which one.
I don't know.
But
Louisiana Tech, which I think
Louisiana
was
Tech
part 1,
running
maybe.
back.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favorite G5 running backs in his class. He's going to rank pretty high for me, even though he's G5. So really interesting player
and huge. And as we go through this,
bulldozer.
and he's just massive. And as we go through these guys and we talk through this, over and over, and we mentioned it, I think even on the G5 show, after the first 5 guys in a class, I think I'm personally shifting gears and valuing a little bit more of CFF. I may not have a problem ranking some of these G5 guys higher, or guys going to lesser schools that are going to play, because your NFL upside at that point, after the first few guys, I'm not trying to predict an NFL upside for running back 13. I might as well take a guy I know is going to give me some run on the CFF level. So I think these guys are more relevant now than they ever have been, to be honest, at least on the college fantasy side. All right, gentlemen, it was a great show again. Thanks so much. All the work you always put in. You're always bringing names to my desk that I've never even heard of. Couldn't do it without you guys, as always. And if you're watching this at home, tune in next week. Of course, we will do 3-star wide receivers. If you haven't already been to campus2kansas.com, go check that out. Of course, you have all of our recruiting tools, data analysis, articles, anything from the college fantasy side, C2C, Devi, NFL draft coverage, dynasty coverage on the NFL side, really anything you need to enjoy and get better at fantasy football. So campus2kansas.com. For Matt and David, this has been The Official. We'll see you next week with wide receivers.